Hey everybody and welcome to Chairman of the Board. Today I'm taking a look at Awkward Guests, which is a deduction game for 1 to 8 players. Takes around an hour to play on average. Now, as I said, it's a deduction game, and with a lot of deduction games, the theme of the game is to try and solve a murder mystery. So in this game, the first player to work out who killed Mr. Walton, who is this rich guy who lives in this huge mansion. So you're trying to find out who killed him, why they killed him, how they killed him, and also if they had an accomplice. Now that accomplice rule only applies to the more kind of advanced levels of the game. Now this game was actually printed a few years ago, but only in Spanish, and they actually, after a very, very successful or a very positive review from the Dice Tower, and there was a lot of buzz kind of forming about this game, and they relaunched their Kickstarter campaign and was very, very successful the second time. The Kickstarter campaign has been delivered this year, and the games are starting to hit the tables. Now, I generally like deduction games. It's not something I generally try and seek out, but when I play them, I do tend to enjoy them. This one really intrigued me because of the different way the kind of game plays out. That's because it used this very interesting kind of deck system where you basically shuffle a bunch of predetermined cards into a huge deck, which will basically determine who the who the suspect is, who the weapon is, and what the motive is, depending on that deck layout. And the game comes with an absolute mountain of these different scenarios, so and they all range of different difficulties. So the replayability here is absolutely brilliant because just by mixing up those cards in a different kind of formation, you get very different outcomes. What also really intrigued me about this game was the more kind of practical way the deduction applies, because everybody's player sheet, which, with these deduction games, you tend to get kind of a list of things where you're ticking off and trying to work out ultimately what the answer is. But this player sheet is really more dynamic than the average player sheet because not only have you got the list of weapons, you've got the list of people, you've got the motives and stuff like that, but also you've got a physical layout, like a blueprint of a mansion. And that actually helps you deduce further who the actual perpetrators are. Because, as I said, not only have you got to find out the kind of typical information, you've got to work out which room people were in, which routes they took around the mansion to eliminate further information. So, for example, if someone was in the kitchen, or say you got a card that said nobody passed through the kitchen, that's an example of one of the cards, then you know that if another entrance was blocked and people were in a certain room, you know that nobody in that side of the house could possibly be responsible for the murder. So there's really more layers to the deduction in this game than the average deduction game, and that really intrigued me. And it's very kind of gripping and very kind of tangible how this kind of murder mystery plays out. You really do get your teeth stuck into it, and you can really imagine how the game or how the actual how the scenario played out if you're quite imaginative. So it's very very tangible, very thematic, and I do enjoy that about this quite a lot. I think it's very immersive, and just that replayability of all the different setups is absolutely mind-blowing. And not only that, they're actually releasing an app as well, which has a plethora more scenarios you can play, and again, all ranging in different difficulties. So if you want to play this with someone who's a bit younger, you can do so, and if you want to play it with really advanced players, you can put it as hard as possible, where you've probably got an accomplice and you've got lots of contradicting information. So yeah, you've got to really work out the crux of what happened. So not only is it different in that respect, it's also different in the respect of how the game actually flows, because what happens is someone is like the starting player, and they will choose, using this kind of mansion sheet, what information they want regarding. So for example, they can point an arrow towards maybe a certain person or a certain place. Then everybody else has to, out of their hand of cards they've got 6 cards, they've got to pick out information regarding those places or people, and then they basically put them face down and show the value of the information, because every card has a number assigned to it from 1, 2 or 3. 1 being maybe less pertinent information and 3 being very very helpful information. So for example, a bit of 1 information might say something like, oh, the rope wasn't used to kill Mr. Walton, whereas a piece of 3 information might say something like, oh, there was no defensive wounds on Mr. Walton, so therefore you could tick off a bunch of weapons it couldn't be. So yeah, but anyway, as I said, you place that information down with a value assigned to it, and then the person or the first player has to choose whether they want to take that information or who they want to take it from, because every player is doing this at the same time. And then they have to take that information and they've got to give equal amount of information back. So there's this real kind of give and take or push and pull aspect to it, about holding the information that you don't want to give away, giving away information that you're happy to give away because maybe you know something more than other players know, and you're quite happy to give this information away because you don't think it's that important. So I really do like that aspect of it, and it's quite clever and quite innovative. So yeah, I do enjoy that, and the mechanisms themselves are so streamlined. There's really nothing there that bogs the game down. There's nothing fiddly, nothing convoluted. So it's very much just draw your new cards for the round, tick off your sheet as much as possible, ask for information about where you want. Every player bids what they want to give. You take what you want, and it goes to the next player. So a real nice flow to the game, and nothing that's going to take you out of the immersion of it. It really is all about that deduction, which is what you want in a game like this. You don't want fiddly, convoluted rules, and this game certainly doesn't have them. So yeah, really like that aspect of it. I also like the real kind of, it feels like every round when you get this new information, that the information isn't boring. It's not like, oh, that's boring. Everything feels really interesting. Everything feels dynamic, such as, oh, someone might say, this person and this person might have passed through this room, or this room only had 2 people in. There was no kind of blood found at the scene or stuff like that. And all of it feels so important, because something that's really very small to one player can be huge to you, because it can really help you point out or narrow down what you want it to be or what you think it should be. And that real tension of who's going to get there first is so important. I also love that when you get like 2 bits of information that are contradicting you, there's just this kind of light bulb moment when you think, oh, one of these 2 people are lying, so it must be one of them. Because one person might say, oh, I was in this room alone, while the other person says, oh, I was in this room but with someone else. So and that other person might give an alibi to the other person, so you know therefore this person's lying. So very interesting, very, as I said, dynamic. It just feels like it feels almost real, and it just has a really cool feel to it. So yeah, in terms of the deduction, in terms of the way the game flows, it's absolutely brilliant. It really does feel new, it feels fresh, and it just is so immersive. I love the way that you can pick and choose which kind of level difficulty you want it to be, because even the most simple ones, they're still really interesting, because you still got to solve the murder mystery, and there's still that tension of who's going to get in there first. But when you get into the more advanced ones, I can only imagine the hardest ones, how hard they're going to be. The game takes, as I said, about 45 minutes to an hour and a quarter to play, which just really is that sweet spot for this game. It does not outstay its welcome at all. Once you go through the deck of cards, there is more and more information becomes public, so it does accelerate the game and help come towards the end of the game. And as I said, just a great timestamp of the game. And again, player uptime is also excellent, because you're always engaged about what's happening. You are always ticking things off your sheet, always wanting to give information away so you get more back. So yeah, never feeling like you're out of the game, never sitting around waiting for your next turn. And in terms of replayability as well, an absolute mountain of scenarios, all feeling very different. So yeah, absolutely incredible in terms of its replayability. The player interaction as well, very, very good, because as I said, you've got to be very careful about which information you want to give away. Not give people information away that's going to make them solve the mystery quicker than you are. Knowing which information to keep, knowing which information which to discard, or what you're willing to share. It's so, so interesting. And like the level of interaction here, there's nothing in there that is, just shoved in, nothing in there that doesn't need to be there. Aesthetically, the game has quite a unique look to it. Now, I personally really like the look of it. It has this kind of washed out, kind of cartoony, almost dark feel to it. Very cartoony and very silly, but also, I don't know, I just think it fits the game really well. So yeah, I do like the artwork. The caricatures are really lively. I know have a lot of character to them, and you could just imagine their personalities just by looking at them. And again, the component quality is also up to scratch. I mean, I've got the Kickstarter version of the game. I'm not sure if it's even going to retail, but you know, these were upgraded card stock. And stuff like that. So the cards have a very nice feel to them. The paper sheets where you tick the stuff off is really well done, nice size. They're double-sided sheets for replayability. You've got really nice shields to stop other people looking at your sheet, and that's dry erasable as well. So if you want to tick off further information, you can do. There is a bit of an issue where there is actually a printing error on the player's shield. So, you know, a bit of a typo, a bit of production error there, something to be mindful of, and a bit of a shame it slipped through the cracks. So that's just something to be wary of. Love the theme of the game. I said, so engaging, so tangible, and so immersive. No fault there at all. And the setup and teardown time, there is a bit that goes into it. As I said, because there is so many different setups for replayability, that comes with a negative side as well, because the setup of the deck can be quite time consuming. It's a lot. There's like 200 cards or so, and you know, you have to put in individual cards into this deck. So that can take a bit of time, and it takes a lot of shuffling to make sure you get a good shuffle. So yeah, but you know, if you set up beforehand or set up at the end of your last game, and you can dive right into it next time. So yeah, set aside a bit of time to set up, but once it's done, there's not really any upkeep, there's not really any housekeeping in the game. So yeah, once it's set up, it is set up. So overall, this game is excellent. It is such a good experience, so much fun. As I said, really immersive, and you feel like you know things that other people don't know. Always on the end of your seat, just trying to work out that last bit of information you're trying to get, just to get in there before any other player does. The thematics just really do shine here. I absolutely adore this game. As I said, I do generally like deduction games, but I've never really kind of like been completely hooked or kind of enamored with one. And this is one that I am absolutely hooked on. I think it is fantastic. It really does blow almost every other pure deduction game of this style out of the water. I mean, you've got your kind of other style of deduction games, such as your Sherlock Holmes and your Chronicles of Crime. They have a very different feel, and I hold them very high in regard too. But this one has blown almost every other deduction game completely out of the water and pretty much killed them dead, if I'm honest. If you like your deduction games, this is the game to try out. It is the best one out there, no doubt. So good, you have to experience it yourself. You will just adore it, I'm sure. A fantastic, excellent game that is Awkward Guests. You'll be doing yourself an injustice if you do not give it at least a try. So that concludes my review of Awkward Guests. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.